name is Gianmaria Griglio. I'm a conductor and a composer, and welcome back for another video on Brahms. Now, as we all know, Brahms, like all great composers, presents a myriad of challenges for the interpreter. The whole introduction to his first symphony, which was the subject of the previous video, will make any conductor, whether they're experienced or not, question himself or herself about balance, lines, and tempo. Now, in this video, we're going to continue with the first movement and see how to overcome the problems of tempo and balance, while of course we'll keep an eye on the usual conducting traps and how to overcome those as well with some tips and tricks. So, stay tuned. Now, the first question that comes up is, how do we deal with a tempo transition between the introduction, the poco sostenuto, and the allegro? Well, of course, we could use the old mathematical equation of eighth note equal dotted quarter. Now, as much as that would be a perfectly legitimate solution, it is also, of course, the easiest one. And it's not necessarily the best one, and let's see why. Because Brahms uses the term allegro, which is not a specific tempo indication, but rather is a feeling, is an indication of a feeling. And this indication needs to work for the entire movement. This movement nowadays is often quite heard at a fast pace, which makes it very exciting in the beginning, but then falls flat on its face when one wants to hear the notes and not just the impetus sway of the first musical gesture. Now, in other words, going too fast means losing the dramatic quality of the 16 notes. These 16 notes are not just a mere ornament, but they're an integral part of the theme. And as a matter of fact, they will be reused over and over again, transformed in different ways, like this, for instance. As a general indication, taking the allegro slightly slower than the un poco sostenuto should do the trick. It will also help make the transition to the meno allegro at the end of the movement much smoother and less abrupt, closing the circle with the introduction, to which the coda obviously refers to. Next up, balance. We talked about the problem of balance already in regard to the introduction of this first movement, and the balance challenges of the three lines in the introduction come back here as the theme gets reworked and reorchestrated, of course. The violin line from the introduction is now passed to the cellos and the bassoon. The violas and second violins take on the pulsing 8 notes of the timpani. The first violins play a sweeping variation on the motive at letter A. So the entire movement is filled by the juxtaposition of these themes in one form or another. And of course, it is arguably it's very difficult to balance. Again, not too fast of a tempo will help. However, do take into consideration the character of the lines and where they originated from, what the intention is. Try to see what the intention is behind the notes, what Brahms is trying to convey. For example, as mentioned, the violas and the second violin's line comes from the timpani. Hence, they should not be treated as mere accompaniment, but should hold the same pulsing weight. And here's a technical tip. Make sure that the crescendo of the first violins on bar 43 does not lead to a fortissimo, or it will completely obliterate the 16ths in the cellos and the bassoon. And plus, you'll have no way to go for the più forte on bar 46. The intention rather than volume is the key. Now, watch out for the downbeat on bar 45. There's a tendency to play the quarter note shorter, as if it had a dot on top, like the 8th note of the cellos and the bassoon. This one needs to fulfill its whole value in order not to drop the tension and make it sound like, you know, a hysterical Rossini or something along that line. And also notice the crescendo in the bottom line on bars 46 and 47. That's another balance track. The key here is keeping the first violins from blasting away their line. They're already in the high registers. There's no need to push that. They will have no problem being heard. But if they're too loud, the bottom parts will be forced to make a bigger crescendo. And as a consequence, the fortissimo at bar 51 will completely lose its effect. It's extraordinary how Brahms transforms the same material in a kaleidoscope of variations that always sound familiar and yet they're different. Now, the main line of the first violins comes back repeatedly, bouncing back and forth between woodwinds and strings, then transforms to get the second theme of the movement. The chromatic motive is also omnipresent, inverted at letter B in the cellos and the basses, which then take the shape of the melodic pizzicatos in the strings in bar 105. Now here you need to keep your stroke short and tight, as it will help the ensemble. And here's another technical tip. Bar 148 to 157 offer a great chance to register the lines and use your hands independently. Now you can use your left hand for the horn, pulsing on the first beat of bar 149 and registering the line upwards and downward. You can do the same for the clarinet with your right hand. And then again, left for the horn, right on the flute and oboe. And you keep the right for the clarinet and the bassoon and the left for the horns. And your right hand will be right there in place for the strings and especially for the violas. Don't get tricked by the agitato marking at bar 177. That is not an indication of a tempo change. Rather, it's an indication of the intention again. It's an indication of the character of the piece. And on top of that, if speeding up here will definitely pose a problem of going back to the original tempo if you take the repeat. Speaking of which, to repeat or not to repeat? Should the repeat be observed or not? Now, this is an eternal debate. Earlier accounts want Brahms to repeat the exposition. On the other hand, at one point he seems to have said that once the audience was accustomed to the piece, there was no necessity for it. Now, again, these are Brahms' words that have been reported, so we don't know for sure if he said them. It should be taken with a grain of salt. Personally, I prefer to repeat the exposition, and I actually do not find it like it impedes the dramatic flowing at all. And with the repeat, the ear is being exposed to the C minor center for quite a bit of time. So the plunging into the B major of the second ending results much more dramatic. Now this brings us to the end of the exposition. The development, playing with different fragments of the usual motives, poses again the challenge of balancing everything carefully. Now, on bar 273, for example, there's another listen carefully from a conducting point of view moment. Brahms writes a long dominant pedal, and the music sort of seems to relax. By the way, here's a kicker. Look at the alternating rhythms between cellos and timpanis. Does that remind you of anything in particular? Now, it's important to keep the tension in the character of those 8 notes, as this pedal is a preparation for the real crescendo that's coming up and starts at bar 294. It's particularly important to pace this crescendo in order to achieve a real fortissimo only at bar 321. Now, as musicologist Donald Tovey defines it, referring to the whole passage actually, from the letter H to the recapitulation, This is probably the longest and most intense passage that has ever been produced as this part of a first movement. And it is breathlessly exciting. Now, on a final note, notice how before the meno allegro there is no rallentando marking. The rallentando is already written in the music, specifically in the cello line. The cellos go from playing 8 notes to quarter notes in duplets to regular quarter notes. And this creates a natural rallentando in the music without the need to add any extra to it, thus avoiding the risk of slowing down too much into the meno. So did you learn something new from this video? Then don't forget to like it and to subscribe to my channel. Just click on the subscribe button at the bottom of this video right now. And now, on to you. Do you prefer a slower or a faster tempo? Do you feel closer to a robust Beethovenian structure or more to the romantic elements? Or more of a combination of two? As Brahms was, actually. Let me know in the comments below right now, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Yeah. These 16 notes are not a mere ornament, but they're actually an integral. Damn it! Let's do this again. Don't get... Let's redo this.